When you were 5 years old, your mother told you, if you don't have anything good to say about someone, then don't say it. The problem is, you're not 5 years old anymore, and the being silent is costing you more than you realize. Early in my career, I realized something about myself. I wouldn't always speak my mind. If something frustrated me, I kept it to myself. If there was an issue with someone, I tried to work it out behind the scenes. And when you're young, that's not a bad approach because you look diplomatic, you look easy to work with, you look like someone that can be reliable. But as you get older, this works against you. And what is suddenly now seen as diplomacy or good behavior is suddenly turned into a lack of discipline, letting things slide. And what often happened with me is I would burst out. So the volcano that was suddenly stoking itself up would suddenly come out at very inopportune moments. What I learned from a coach at some point was that what I was doing was not being polite or friendly or trying to fit in or a team player. I was being too tolerant. And in this case, tolerant means undisciplined, letting things slide, not really enforcing certain expectations, cultural norms that would make people's performance increase. And my job as their boss was indeed to ensure that the high performers were really incentivized and motivated, and then to weed out the low performers. What I was inadvertently doing was letting everything slip. And that means that things began to look more mediocre, business results were not what they should have been, etc., etc. Hi, I'm John Firth. I'm a coach for CEOs and owners of small and medium-sized businesses. I've been doing this kind of work for 10 years, and before that I was a strategy consultant. This content on my channel reflects everything I've learned in the last 35 years, and I hope you enjoy it by hitting the subscribe button and/or booking a free consultation with me. Carefrontation is about doing two things at once. Both personally caring, but also willing to say the hard things that most people don't want to say or hear. It's very difficult, and most people default to one of the other positions. I defaulted more to being friendly and keeping a good relationship and not putting it at risk, but many people often will just say what they think and without any regard to how they're affecting someone else's. Radical candor, or what I call carefrontation, is very difficult because it asks you to undo instincts that have been built into you since you were 5 years old, which is to keep the peace, to be friendly, to be nice, not push too hard, and to make sure that you're in good standing with everybody you work with. And you're incented at work to stay professional. So what exactly are the costs of being too tolerant or not carefrontational enough or exercising radical candor? Well, I've talked a little bit about the decrease in performance and your own personal well-being. But there are other sort of more political, more stickier situations you can get yourself into. I had a friend who often got himself caught between a rock and a hard place when a boss and an employee were not quite getting along. The employee would ask for some of his time. He would naturally give it to her because he felt bad for her and he liked her and they were friends. But the boss was his boss. So he had to, on the other side, play as if he empathized with the boss and understood perfectly well that this employee was draining resources and energy. Of course, by the time it all came to a head, he felt like an idiot because he was caught between both sides and was in constant fear that they would realize that he may not have been very authentic. The employee was eventually fired. So that's one of the things. Difficult situations that you can't get yourself out of because you're forced into inauthentic postures. The bad relationships that occur when you blow up inadvertently. Bosses who stop trusting you. These are all costs. Now, there are two organizations in my experience that I thought did an excellent job of getting their employees on the boat of radical candor or giving feedback. And that was Accenture and IBM. Interestingly enough, they were competitors in many areas. They're essentially big consulting firms with a heavy technology focus. And what they did in the 90s was they created a culture of absolute feedback, timely and immediate. Whenever there was an activity where an employee was having to show some mastery of some skill, either presentation or developing a new product or something, whenever it was necessary, the boss would give them feedback. And when I was running the association for the consulting industry, IBM had some presenters, and their boss came to me before they started presenting and asked me to pay attention, provide her with my feedback so she could give them immediate feedback within an hour of the presentations. It was very mature, very well done. You could see that the employees really drank it up. It was a strategic positioning. It was a way for IBM to attract high potentials and keep them engaged. Accenture did the same thing. But they were a little less in your face about it. They had, in midterm reviews, anytime you had a review, you had your strengths, but you didn't have your weaknesses or faults. You had what was called areas of development. So that softened the blow a little bit, especially if somebody was underperforming. We talk about areas of development. It also implied that there were action steps behind anything that was subpar. Both organizations thrived in the 90s, just absolutely, IBM stock, it was a major turnaround under Lou Gerstner, and Accenture ultimately did an IPO at an incredible valuation. Both organizations grew, attracted great talent, and are still a hallmark of business acumen even till today. So you've made it to the end of this video, and I'd love to know your thoughts. Perhaps you have a question. Please put that in the comment box, and I will answer within 24 hours, and I'm sure others will comment on your comment. And please don't forget to go to the description of this video, where you'll find the link to my website, a link to my Calendly, and also a link to my book, Owning Tomorrow, The Unstoppable Force of Disruptive Leadership, which was really the beginning of all my thinking 8 or 9 years ago.